great courses.
Mm-hmm. This is the last session of our mindfulness sessions, and y'all, I can see it's already working. You seem more balanced. You seem more more relaxed and living in the now. And we've got some interesting things to share with you today, and we want to encourage you that if anything's on your heart or your mind to share about your practices or about what we've done the last 3 weeks, we would encourage you to very comfortably share. It would help David and me sort of figure out how to tweak our approach a little bit to make it more meaningful. What we're going to start off today with is, of course, an opening prayer, and it's going to be just like in the last 2 weeks, a meditation. And what we're going to do is ask you to follow Amy Oden's chapter 3 of what we call the breath prayer. And just to remind everybody, the breath prayer is where it is a technique where we use our breathing to try to connect with God here and now, right along with the title of the book. So what I want to ask you to think about as we set up the meditation is some phrase or something that you can repeat silently to yourself when we get to that point in the meditation. If you remember in the book, what Amy talks about is right here. She's focusing, her point is to try to make this intentional and for the moment is her objective in the breath prayer. And so, it could be quiet, be calm, love all. It could be whatever, you're moved to think of. But try to think of something like that as we get to that point of our meditation. Okay? So anyway, David, is anything else you want to say before we get started?
Just maybe a little bit of a conversation that George and I had this week in preparing for this. And I asked George, I said, so should we have a show of hands of the people that have read the book? And we kind of went back and forth and decided not to have a show of hands, right? But the thing that I just wanted to share is hopefully over the last several weeks is that George and I have been able to provide an experience. You know, you can read a book, you can try to do the exercises, but really mindfulness and meditation, it's an experience. And, you know, after George does the opening meditation is we just want you to share your experiences of this class, of other times that you might have been able to be mindful, because what we want to be able to do is just to get this program right from an experiential perspective, because I think that's the important thing. And we know that it's difficult to find time, but at some point it's you being able to consistently gift yourself the time to have this wonderful experience. And I say that, you know, the more you try it, the more it becomes a gift, and then it becomes something that you want to integrate into your lifestyle. So hopefully these last couple of weeks have been experiential, as well as a little bit of academics from the book. But that was the thing that we just wanted to make sure that we were getting that part right. So George,
And the other thing, I guess, to build on what you're saying, David, is that different people in different points in their lives, you know, have different ways of accepting information and processing information. And like with the youth, it would be probably a lot different how we would conduct these sessions. It wouldn't be quite TikTok, but it would
right.
it would be a different type of technique probably. Mm-hmm. So anything you can share later on in the day, morning, that would help us with that would be greatly appreciated. Okay. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started with our guided meditation. Let's first of all close our eyes gently. Put your hands either in your lap or comfortably by your side. And then let's start our breathing process. Remembering to take deep breaths. When we inhale deep, breathe deeply in through our noses. Hold that breath for a second or two, and then release that breath through our mouths. Let's do that again. Slowly and deeply inhale through our noses. Hold it, and then release it. One more breath. Deeply inhaling. Holding that breath. And then exhaling. Now we return back to a comfortable breathing pattern as we normally would when we're relaxed and balanced. We continue to breathe, and we feel that oxygen, that air into our lungs, and we focus on our body. We evaluate what our body is telling us. We continue our breathing. We feel ourselves relaxing, our mind emptying, and the sense of calm coming over us. As David mentioned earlier, we thank ourselves for taking this time to spiritually connect with God and ourselves and community. As our mind wanders, if it wanders, we focus back on our breathing to center ourselves. We don't criticize ourselves if our mind wanders. That's just a natural process. But we refocus ourselves on our zone of well-being, a comfort zone of energy around us that keeps us in the here, the now. We imagine for just a second ourselves on a beautiful, beautiful beach. We sit calmly as we look at the blue sky. We hear and see the waves gently coming. We see trees. We feel the warmth of the sun and this warm breeze coming over us. We again thank ourselves that we've taken time to enjoy this very quiet, relaxing moment. As we continue our breathing, we think of our breath prayer. We will repeat this prayer 5 times, and we will focus on the here, the now, and our intention for the coming week as we say this breath prayer silently to ourselves. We will say things like, right here, love all, God is love. And we'll do this with an inhale and an exhale. So we start our breath prayer with our inhale and continue through the exhale. We do this a second time. The inhale and the exhale. Again, inhale and the exhale. Again, inhale and exhale. And our final breath prayer, inhale and exhale. And we turn this over to God. Amen. When you're ready, just open your eyes and rejoin this moment. David, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, George. So how do you feel? Relaxed? Congratulations. So what we wanted to do is just take a couple of moments to share personal experiences with mindfulness. And I'm not going to call on people, but hopefully you'll be able to share. But what I want you to think about, and I'll just use a couple of examples, there is mindfulness or the intent of mindfulness in some traditional practice, religious practices. I was brought up Catholic. I had an uncle who was a priest, so we were pretty well steeped in Catholicism. But later in life, moved over to being a Presbyterian. But when I look back on my Catholic tenure, I remember when I was young, actually sitting in a pew at a church with the rosary beads. And, you know, it's Our Father and 10 Hail Marys and Glory Bees, right? And then as I got into mindfulness later, I said, you know what? That rosary bead is just this perfect instrument for mindfulness. So if you've ever said the rosaries, you were probably in that mindfulness space. And then about 10 years ago, my wife Carol and I befriended some Buddhist monks. And they were in Hickory, and they were on their tour. And if you're familiar with the sand mandala, where these monks sit around a table, and they create these intricate sand sculptures, grain by grain. And that process, that very contemplative process of taking the grains of sand from the packet and putting it into this design is a contemplative exercise. So the Buddhists have that same type of, you know, sort of contemplative practice. And the amazing thing, I'm not sure if you've ever been to a Buddhist celebration, but after a week of meditation and mindfulness, they take the cardboard that this beautiful, intricate art form is, and they just fold it up, and all the sand comes together, and then they distribute the sand, to individuals that celebrated that service with them. And I still have that little container of, so for me, in my sort of journey of mindfulness, there's been different sort of, milestones in my life that I said, well, I was doing mindfulness when I was doing the rosaries as a teenager, and as an adult, when I went to visit with the Buddhist monks, there was mindfulness. But the thing that I wanted to share with you is I had a friend of mine when I started mindfulness in my 20s, and was reading some books and went to just a seminar like this, and that was the seed that got planted for a lifetime of this commitment. And then later in life, I've actually just, fortunate enough to train. But a friend of mine came up to me and she said, David, there's a place in central Massachusetts that is a meditation retreat. And she knew that I was into this, and she said, I think you should go to this program. And it's a very formal type of meditation from India. It's called Vipassana meditation, and I don't know if anybody has heard of that. But the thing was, it was a life-changing event because that meditation program was an 11-day, fully silent retreat. So talk about life-changing in my mid-30s. And I can remember to this day is that I was coming home, it was in the wintertime, and we had just spent, 11 glorious days of silence, some real introspection. And I can remember that it had just snowed, and as I was driving on the highway, the sound of the slush underneath my tires was so loud because I had just been so quiet for that period of time. So the reason I tell you this story is not to rush out and sign up for an 11-day meditation retreat, but what I realized is that the gift that I would give people is to allow them that mindfulness experience without having to go for 11 days. So hopefully, the combination of George and I and our facilitated guided meditations allow you to experience at least the sense of that mindfulness state, that contemplative mindfulness. And then the only thing that I would encourage is to start slow, to gift yourself some time each day, if possible, to just be quiet. And then just let God take over and let God speak. Yesterday, I was just telling George, I came up to the Lindell Chapel yesterday morning at 6:30 in the morning. And I didn't have anything scheduled, so I came up for an hour and I meditated in the chapel for an hour. And it was wonderful. And then later in the day, my wife is telling me about these individuals that she's met, and this synchronicity of me putting out this intention of something that I should be doing next. And all of a sudden, that afternoon, my wife says, well, I've met these two people that can help us with this program. So it's an amazing gift. So I would just encourage you to make the time and then just be quiet and listen, and God will show up in amazing ways that you could never even imagine. So I want to open up to some dialogue. So mindfulness experience, and it might not even be mindfulness. It could be knitting or swimming or some part of your lifestyle, walking at Jeton Park.
Well, Sterling and I had a conversation at the end of the last session that I thought was sort of interesting. Hopefully you don't mind me sharing the fact that he's on a quest right now of reading the entire Bible in a year. And we were talking about how he could maybe adapt some of the mindfulness techniques and apply it to the process. And I guess you're listening to a Catholic priest read different sections of the Bible. And I just wondered if you thought any more about how the mindfulness process might prepare you more for listening to the books of the Bible. Any reactions?
When I think about my experience over the years, I think I'm probably not very disciplined. I've been busy and have not a chaotic life, but a busy life, I think, in the kind of career I've had with teaching students and spending 40 years, I guess, dealing with cross-country and track teams and all of the things that go on in the college life. But recently, I've tried to make an effort to be sure that I'm exercising on a disciplined basis. And so I found in the last 56, 57 days now that on this quest to try to read the complete Bible, which I've never done over the years, with the guidance of a podcast by a Catholic priest who reads a couple of chapters every day, and then and talks a little bit about it afterwards about what it meant. I'm finding that if I walk my 5 miles and come back and from the cross-country course, get whatever small nourishment I might take at that point, and take that at that point while I'm eating and listen to this podcast, that it has brought some discipline in my actions that I don't remember having intentionally in the past. So it's, I think, a difficult beginning to tap into this. You do it unconsciously over the years, I think. I haven't intentionally stopped to meditate, but I think if I take that time and combine the two, that it's beginning to show some results. And it's made an interesting quest in the story of the Bible. You know, when you get through Leviticus and Numbers, those are hard to make any sense out of until you begin to place that into the whole story of salvation and what that means to us. So yeah, it's, I think it's a helpful technique. Hopefully it will be more and more impactful as I continue, but it's a matter of learning discipline again, I think, to allow us to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think you raised two things that we want to maybe underscore. One is the discipline aspect. It's something that you just don't flip a switch and automatically you're this mindfulness, guru or whatever. It takes practice. It takes intention. Yeah.
I understand your meditative state on the, probably the 42nd Hail Mary that you're sitting in church mindlessly quoting that. So I think that is a very interesting observation that Catholics had it a long time ago in some way, as many other people did too. I'm still trying to grasp the difference between mindfulness, meditation, and the story that you told about your wife, and at the same time that you were meditating and feeling the presence of God, she was doing something very constructive to help you. Are you connecting those two? Absolutely. So then I have witnessed so many times in this last year the hand of God in my life. And I don't know if that connects with mindfulness or the presence of him. And I attribute it to him too when something happens and I say, I can't believe that just happened. And I wish I could come up with a good example of how it happens, but it happens even in the smallest ways. I've been searching for my keys, searching. Now I'm upset, I can't find them. I don't have to use them right now, but I can't find this set of keys. And they're expensive to replace. So I go to my car, or I'm in the garage doing something, and all of a sudden, I gotta go to that drawer and pull out that tape that I need, say it's duct tape or whatever. There are my keys sitting right there. that I would never find. And I stop and I say, thank you, God. So, but that's not mindfulness.
Well,
what's your experience? I mean, George and I were just talking about this.
Take the mic so they can hear.
Yeah, George and I were just talking about this, and we've got a wonderful fellowship journey to the Duke NC State game on Tuesday that we're going to talk about this in detail. But that's what happens, is that when you slow down and you listen, right, and you're mindful, God has been talking to us our whole lives. We just haven't been able to hear it amongst the busyness and the programming. And Amy said it in her video, that the busyness is a medication of not wanting to be quiet.
Yeah.
So I think that the quieter that you get, and I used to use this when I was teaching down at Myers Park Pres, I would have, remember the 2 tin cans on a string when you were a kid and it was a telephone? I said, that's kind of what most people have relative to their connection of God. Now fast forward to 2023 and you got a cell phone you can operate around the world. That's what mindfulness will do for you. As you go from the tin can to a landline to a cell phone, you go, wow, this is a really clear connection with God. I see him on a daily basis.
Well, do you think he'll help me find my keys quicker next time?
maybe. Yeah.
My daughter is at App State. She's not very religious. But I told her the presence of my dad, I feel him on a regular basis because he always finds an amazing parking space for us.
Yeah.
And that's, so now my daughter uses it at college, and she's taught her friends how to channel my dad to find parking spaces. And I said, no wonder I'm not finding parking spaces, because my dad's so busy finding parking spaces for you guys.
But before we go to Pam, I just wanted to make one other comment, on Jane's comment, and that is the difference between mindfulness and meditation, because these are terms that are hard to define. You know, everybody has a little different definition for each of those. Now, for me, I think of mindfulness as the state I want to get to of calm, balance, and relaxation, listening to God, being able to have that state. To me, the meditation is a tool that helps me get there. Exactly. But that's the way I look at it. But you talk to 10 different people and you'll get 11 different answers, right?
Well, and then to build on what George said, is that what has happened to me, and I can remember this in my sort of mid-40s, I had an incredibly disciplined meditation practice. And what happens is that presence of God in your daily life is 24/7. It becomes even richer and more real time the more that I meditated, because I was using that tool to develop the mindfulness, that it wasn't just in the morning or in the afternoon when I went to bed. It was all day, and it was like, wow, this is an amazing experience. And you got to believe, right? 40 days. Christ did a lot of meditation in 40 days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is really helpful. I love your definition. I grew up in a Protestant church where there was never any knowledge or experience of meditation or mindfulness. I wasn't aware of those words. In my former life, I was a youth director in an ecumenical church, and before freshmen in high school joined the church, we would visit world religions. And so we would do the Hare Krishnas and the Buddhists, and that's when I experienced this Hare Krishna. But it was a whole state. It was a meditative state. And I began to understand then the rosary and all the rituals that are part of the Episcopal and the Catholic Church, that those rituals are really important. And I always grew up saying, oh no, rituals aren't important, it's all up here in your head. And I went on a Buddhist pilgrimage with Houle, who was the Buddhist pastor at the college, instructor at the college. And we went to Tibet, and they were doing the rosaries all the time. And then I realized that they're really, and they would say, "Oh, Mani Padme Hum, oh, Mani Padme Hum." That was a connection to a divine source, however they would experience, how they would express it. For me, I understood that there's this powerful, loving, gracious God that so many religions are hooking into through these meditative experiences. And so we may differ on how we define that divine spirit, but that divine spirit is here around earth. So I have come to really understand and study through centering prayer, saying one word or a few words in a meditative experience. And I have it's a podcast an app that I listen to. There's one from Plum Village, which is really good, Thich Nhat Hanh. And that sometimes I start meditating and I think of things I have to do and I just stop and go do them. And I just think, this is failure, Pam, and I think, that's okay, God, I got to get to do this because I'm going to forget if I don't do it now. So I have a lot of room to grow. But the experience of one, I'm always cold in the winter. And when I meditate, I'm warm. And I just think that's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's, how did this happen to my body? And I find that if I do that, I have a calmer, a quieter way of living the day and responding to the day. So it's been really helpful.
While you still have the mic, you made a comment in the first session that I thought was really, really very good. And you made the comment, I'm paraphrasing, that mindfulness and meditation gets me closer to myself, my God, and my community. And do you feel like what you've gone through in the last couple of weeks, Pam, is amplifying that or getting you closer to be able to do that?
George, you've mentioned that a few times, and I need to say that you wrote that in the description of this course. Mm-hmm. So those were your words.
Well, you were a good student then.
But when I read it, I knew its truth. When I read it, I thought, that's it. That's exactly it. That is so important. So those were really valuable words that I remembered because it just spoke so truthfully to me. And has that made a difference? Yes, I have loved your being here. I've really loved these 3 sessions. And they've helped me, but I've got a long way to go on the journey before I'm living this quiet, centered self all day long. But has it helped? Yes. So thank you.
Okay.
I only have a few minutes, really. I should be leaving. But I grew up in Japan, so when I was growing up, I'm 76 years old today. But the time that I was growing up, meditations, that was part of our, real routine in school. We went to school 5.5 days a day, 6 days a week. And we had to sit on hardwood floor, and we are supposed to hear the pin drops. So that's just the way we are raised. And I have the silence, listening to silence, it really became my friend. That's part I can say. And I still go through the yoga every morning and breathing, deep breath, and hold 7 seconds. And I do those things to start yoga. That's my first stage of yoga. But silence become your friend, and you can hear your voice louder. Of course, you hear in a silence all the thought and discipline you have learned, about Christianity. Since I grew up as a Christian for many years, my family was a generation of Christians. So it's really helped my relationship with God, and I have learned so many other things from other people's witnesses. But I have this, I guess I can say this relationship with God in a silence. And nature becomes such a friend. And when you close your eyes and meditate, you are not you, but you're just a part of the really, really surroundings. And it's a wonderful feeling. And thank you.
Thank you.
Ask one question.
Yes.
So for folks that are new to this here and online, you've been doing this for your entire lifetime. What one pearls of wisdom would you give to somebody who's just getting started? And what would be, what would you say?
How important it is to breathe.
Excellent.
And it is a
Excellent.
gift of life.
Yeah.
And that's hold us together. And God gives a life, I believe.
Thank you. Other thoughts? So this discussion is part of the experience. The
Yeah.
chapter in the academics is one thing, but it's sharing the rosary, it's growing up, hearing a pin drop, it's the Buddhist celebration. That's what really makes this class.
And this is what we had hoped would happen, is
Yeah.
some of this discussion.
Yeah.
And we'll probably forgo some of these slides,
Yeah.
Because in favor of this kind of dialogue.
Exactly. Questions, thoughts, other sharing?
How do you know when you've arrived?
That's like, when do you graduate,
That's kind of
Jane?
like, how do you know you've arrived? Well, it's kind of like your golf score, how good is a good golf? What for me, and I'll let George comment as well, and I think this young woman had kind of just the silence and being in the gift of that silence and knowing that God is there. And people say, well, is it God speaking or is it some other force? If it comes from love and it's warm and you can feel it, you're in the presence of God.
Do you feel it? Do you hear it? What sense?
It's
One
different.
of your five senses.
It's
Well, in my situation, when I meditate, I know I have arrived when I get this. It's like a lava lamp effect. It's these different colors and all that come to me as my mind is totally still. I know sometimes it takes a long time to get there. Sometimes it's almost instantaneous. But that's one of, but everybody's different, Jane.
Everybody's different.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody's
it,
different.
I think I've had that once in my life, not intentionally.
mm-hmm.
But I'm walking outside on a gray day, clouds and blue sky mixture. Can you not hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. And I was walking along, and it really was, it was sort of emotional for me. I was thinking absolutely nothing,
Mm-hmm.
but I was looking up at the sky and the movement of the clouds and the different layers passing by each other, and all of a sudden, I was transformed into those clouds. I really felt, obviously I wasn't, I'm in the real world, but something was happening within me
Yeah.
watching those clouds. And I've not experienced it since then, but I knew there was something. And that's what I'm looking for, George, something to
Yeah.
tell me that
But be careful. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get that feeling every day, because you may get a different kind of sensation.
Mm-hmm.
The key is, as Sterling was saying, discipline, staying with it, and you'll enjoy different experiences, I promise you.
Okay. I'll let you know. Talk to me in 2 weeks. Let's see where 2 weeks.
All right, I have a different perspective on this maybe. I'll get really busy or something, and all of a sudden I feel like I need to take a break, and if the weather permits, I go out on my deck, and especially if it's sunny or nice, and I can just feel God's right there with me. I just feel so calm, and I'll just go out there and sit, and I know a lot of times the phone will ring and I won't answer it or something like that, because I just don't want to break the spell. And I've got a lot of trees and woods and everything in my yard, and it's just so peaceful. just going out there and sitting. And even when my cat comes and gets in my lap, it's still, you know, I just feel at peace.
Beautiful.
And,
Beautiful.
Was that being in the moment?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I know a lot of times somebody will say, what, they'll, you know, somebody will come over and I'm just sitting on the deck and I've got things I could do, but I don't do them because I just feel like I need to have this peacefulness. And I look all around at the trees and there's clouds in the sky and everything, and it's just, I just feel at peace. And I know that, you know, I like, and sometimes I have deer in my backyard, and you know, it's a beautiful experience, and I just enjoy doing it. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just go out there, and even when my kids were little, sometimes I just felt like I needed a break. And they knew that if especially, we lived in Connecticut, and if I got a cup of tea and went in the living room, they were not to bother me.
Yeah.
They knew I needed this moment.
That's beautiful.
And I was going to refer to Sterling when he said he was reading the Bible. My husband was in the book business, and he was a buyer for Walden Book Company. And I used to get all sorts of things. And I got a New English Bible with the Apocrypha, and I was going through a real doubting time. And I read the entire thing, including the Apocrypha. And it was the best thing I ever did.
That's great.
Thank you. George, I think we're just going to make some adjustments to,
Yeah.
and if you want to just touch on.
Yeah, we just might mention what's in the package. If
Yep.
we're on slide 2 now. Okay, on these highlights, I'm not going to go over these. They're pretty self-explanatory. These were the highlights in chapter 4. And I think that Amy does a good job of just sort of articulating why mindfulness. And I think just a couple of things I will mention. She says it's very important to realize that we're living mindfulness. We should live mindfulness every day. Today, not to be worried about the future and to regret all the things that happened in the past, but to focus on today. And something that Jane said that I thought was important is that you bring mindfulness into not only a Christian community, but expand that inclusiveness to many different faiths. In other words, we're all part of God's kingdom. And there, you know, we can figure out how to enjoy this journey together. And the final thing that I'll just mention on chapter 4 is she says, let's become stewards, let's become missionaries of the word through our mindfulness. Let us live that in our lives. Let us live by example, by attraction, not promotion. By the way we live our lives, we are sending the right kind of signal to others around us. So anyway, those are just some quick highlights. I don't want to dwell too much on that.
Any thoughts or questions? So the next couple of slides, and we're not going to go through all of the bullet points, but as George and I, and interesting, like in the center of this list is adopt a mindfulness partner. And George and I have become partners in mindfulness, and it's been life-changing for me. But we just cite some of the things that are available. I think Pam had mentioned the use of an app. Lisa Lee has a yoga meditation class here at the church, so we've got that programming. Mindfulness groups. I've got scores of publications from, journals and magazines that are talking about mindfulness. So when you're in the Harris Teeter line and you look at the magazine rack and there's a Life magazine that talks about mindfulness, they do a really good job of summarizing different practices and intents. So I would encourage you to, pick up a mindfulness magazine and see what's the latest and greatest relative to the Yoga Journal or Life magazine relative to mindfulness. And then, we talked a little bit about eating meals slower, being mindful, being grateful. But then the other thing, and this is something that my wife has done, is she started to color again. And I was at a department store, and there was a coloring book, which was the Psalms. And each of the Psalms has an image that's numbered, right, that you color. And it's a wonderful experience for her, and she gets into that relaxed, meditative, contemplative state by just coloring or knitting. Like my daughters have taken up crochet, so I got to believe it's, helping their stress management as they go forward. And then these are some of the opportunities that we've shared kind of at the individual level. And then the other thing that...
Excuse me, and read through those if you would, because some of them may hit a chord with you. And there are a lot of great ideas there.
Yep. So then on the next page, and we'll just touch on this because I want to make sure we get to the last meditation, is here at DCPC, we have a mindfulness steering committee that has formed, and we look at different programming options for what we want to do going forward. In 2022, we had several things. We had the retreat with Amy Oden. We had the New Silent Night during the Advent season. So, there's an active mindfulness community here at the church, and we would love for you to say, hey, I'd like to be more involved and, be supportive of this. But you would get, yoga classes. We've got the steering committee. We meet on a regular basis with Peter and Robert, and I think that you've seen some adjustments, some integration of mindfulness and breathing and relaxation techniques in the services. And I think Pam was talking about this wonderful experience this morning. So George and I are so excited that we're just taking a breath as a congregation and just trying to be, more in the presence of God.
And you are now a member of the alumni group, and you'll be getting emails from the steering committee from time to time.
Yep, that talks about the programming that we're doing throughout the year. So welcome to the alumni group. Questions? Good. And then the last is just, kind of individual DCPC and then the community. There's things that we've talked about from a steering committee perspective, possibly integrating with some of the work that they're doing at Union Presbytery, holding retreats at some of the other locations like the Presbytery, Black Mountain.
Yeah, the retreat.
Montreat,
Center.
at Montreat.
Yeah, Montreat.
Yep. And then George participated this last week. One of the gentlemen that was on our mindfulness discussion panel when Amy was here, his name is Yvonne Mayhoff. He's the Buddhist chaplain at Davidson College, and he had some guests in this week, and George was able to participate in that discussion. So
there were about 10 college students, and it was very, very refreshing to see these college students starting to embrace mindfulness practices at such a young age. They were really, really good.
So stay tuned, more good things to come. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and we're going to queue up this audio track that we've used for the last several sessions. You have a link to it, so please go on to YouTube and feel comfortable using that. What we're going to do is we're going to conclude the program with one of my favorite guided meditations. It's a guided meditation of the 23rd Psalm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just very quickly as you get into that, are there any comments you'd like to make about how we could improve this for, say, this group? And if we were to do this all over, how would we reorganize it? And you don't necessarily have to answer right now. You can send us an email or something, but we would ask you to let us know that. Okay.
All set? Alrighty. I just invite you to close your eyes, put your feet on the floor. Just gently open up your hands in your lap. And we know that the sequence of breathing is if you have a longer inhale, allows your body to relax. So give yourself a minute to find that natural rhythm. And if thoughts come in, just pretend they're like the wind at an open window. And they just pass through the shear. And allow you to come back to that quietness. Now, as you're quiet, just observe your body. Feel relaxed. If there's places that you hold tension, your shoulders or your neck, take a gentle breath and allow the oxygen to relax those cells. Feel yourself gently sinking into your chair. Now, what I'd like you to do is just to envision that there's this column of white light that's gently coming from above, gently touching the crown of your head. And all that white light, love and warmth, just gently cascade down through your body, relaxing, nourishing, comforting. And with each breath you take, that light becomes warmer and stronger. And now just envision that white light gently radiating out from your body. A loving, comforting aura. Cherishing God's presence. Take a gentle deep breath. Exhale. And allow your body and your mind to go to that next level. We've heard this Bible verse many times in our lives. Today we're going to listen to it and allow God's presence to be within us. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is everybody okay? Powerful stuff.
I want to thank you so much for Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has made a difference in the lives of those of us who are here. I thank you for the difference that you're making in the lives of the people who hear about this in our church. I have never heard the 23rd Psalm so beautifully done. It just touched my heart, my soul, my mind. So thank you for all that you've given us this 3 Sundays. We are deeply grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.